Started. Thank you for coming. This is on. Let me just make sure. Westborough TV, we're going to start. So this is going to be recorded and live streamed by Westborough TV. My name is Jen. I'm the Westborough Recreation Director. Thank you for coming to this information session. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the dog park project that we've been working on, bring you up to speed on how we got to where we are today, and then you'll hear from Kyle, our architect. He's been working on a design and hear a little bit more about our plans. Oh, some people coming in. Hi, thanks for coming. Take a seat. So we were just starting. I don't feel like this. Oh no, that's okay. No, I was saying we just started, so feel free to take a seat. All right. So our goal is to build a community dog park open to all residents. We envision a park that builds relationships amongst all residents and their dogs. Earlier this year, the town was awarded the Stanton Foundation grant. This grant will cover 90% of the costs to build the park, including design costs. The rec department was also awarded $107,915 in ARPA funds to support the dog park. So that 10% that we needed to make up, that's where the ARPA funds come in. So that's how we're paying for the project. We aren't going to the taxpayer to ask for anything. I think that was important. So, and again, when we'll get into it more, but as we, when the park is open and we're operating, it's gonna, it'll come out of rec funds and we will maintain the park as we do the rest of our facilities. But again, I'll get into that a little bit later. So here are just some benefits of a dog park that we've learned. This has been an ongoing process over the past couple of years. So in 2022, there were 2,200 registered dogs in Westborough. Having a dog park will decrease the number of off-leash dogs that are in other public spaces like fields, trails, things like that. A dog park allows for those without sidewalks to walk their dog and exercise their dogs safely. It's also a place for those living in apartments or homes that just don't have adequate backyard space to exercise their dogs. So as I was talking about the maintenance of the park, this would become another facility that our department, the Recreation Department, manages. We already manage well over 30 facilities. We work with, we're going to work with the town's animal control officer, who is here tonight, to develop park policies and procedures. After speaking with a few other towns that have dog parks, the upkeep costs are minimal. Most towns report less than $1,000 annually. There seems to be a vested interest in a facility where people tend to make sure the facility is maintained. We see this a lot with the pickleball courts on Lyman Street and our cricket pitch at Hennessy Field. There seems to just be an organic group of users that sort of police it, report back to us if there are major issues, things like that. Hi, yes?
So on the first one, it was like $100-something thousand given for
ARPA, yep.
yeah, what is
American Rescue Plan Act. It was from the state after COVID, and each town, I don't know all the specifics, that was given a certain amount of money, and town departments were able to apply internally for different projects, and our project was awarded that money.
so that whole bulk of money was awarded?
For this, yep.
So, but I was going for different things, right?
No, 107 was just for our rec department. If you go to the towns,
How much of that's going to go towards the dog?
107,000.
Oh,
Yep.
so I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. If you wanted to learn more, too, about ARPA, on the town's website, there's a whole section dedicated to different projects that are coming out of ARPA funds. It might be a good resource, just because I'm not super versed in how, how much the town of Westborough was awarded and things like that. But,
And maintenance costs,
sure.
less than 1,000?
Yep.
Do you have it broken down to like 10, 200 minutes, 300
I don't.
So do you know what that maintenance is?
As far as I know, it's bags, maybe there's a repair and a fence, just typical things like that, that again, we would pay for out of our rec revolving account. So.
Are you going to like show us a diagram or something of what's going to
Yeah. Yep. We're gonna get to all that. Oh, I'm sorry. I think you missed the beginning. I'm so sorry. No. So I'm just gonna walk you through kind of how we got here, and Kyle is our architect, and he will show you the pictures and things like that for sure. Yeah. Was there another question over here?
Yeah, I was just curious. I thought the ARPA funds were for financial issues, transportation issues, things and stimuluses for people and all that stuff, or COVID relief.
So it was COVID.
Dog park fell into that.
There was different. There was outdoor recreation was a category, and there was an internal team that reviewed all applications. I could get you some more information on how we qualified if you'd like. Happy to do that.
Yeah, so then the Stanton Foundation that's the dog park.
Yep.
They're the ones, so they'll fund 90%.
90%. Mm-hmm. Yep.
No, that's not what you said. You said that there was 107,000, you were 10% short. of
Nope.
which-
I'm sorry if I was unclear. So the Stanton Foundation will fund 200 up to 90% of the project, up to $250,000, and then the town will make up that 100. We have 107,000 that the town needs to add.
I'm really curious because I wasn't planning on gold-plated dogs, but okay. Sounds like a lot of money to me, okay.
Great. It's not. It's all the foundation, ARPA, and then, like I said, any maintenance cost comes out of the revolving fund. If you go back, I think rec has pretty historically been self-sufficient in regards to our fields and things, and this will be just another one of the facilities that we take care of. So the location, this is the state hospital property. I'm not sure if you are familiar with the area, but this is that's Lake Chauncey on the side there. There are currently 7 soccer fields in the facility. There's their new cricket pitch, and the dog park is going to be right here in this area. A lot of benefits to this location. Dog walkers already use the surrounding trails. The site has access to water and electricity. We wouldn't be able to use this site for any other playing field, so it's not like we're taking away from something to add a dog park, and it's far enough away from all the other amenities at the property.
Can you give a sense of scale? I know it would be in Kyle's, but you were talking 5 acres, 10 acres?
Kyle, I think, can talk to size.
Yeah, not that big.
So these are just some of the town's planning documents where a dog park has been called out. I won't go through them all, but it's been mentioned in the town's 2016 strategic plan. Our department did a conceptual drawing plan of the property back in 2016 as well, where calls out a dog park. Open space and rec plan in 2018 calls for a dog park, and then in the master plan it also calls for a dog park there in goal 3. This is just the plan. Things have changed obviously with the new community center being elsewhere, but those existing fields are there. And again, this is just a conceptual plan, but it does call out a dog park. This is the facility. Thank you, Westborough TV, for this shot. Again, this is where the dog park will be located. And here's just a timeline. So in April of this year, we were awarded the Stanton Foundation grant. This summer, we put out an RFP for an architect. This fall and winter, we've been working with Kyle here to get a design done, to get ready to go out to bid for construction. January 2024, bid documents will be ready, and Stanton Foundation needs to approve those. And then next spring, early summer, we'll just go out to put out an RFP for construction and begin construction. And then in the fall 2024, we anticipate this park being open. This is just an estimated timeline, but after talking to Stanton and Kyle, we feel that this is a pretty accurate representation of where we're headed. So that was all I had of kind of how we got here. Kyle, like I said, he has some pictures, and he'll be able to talk to more of the scope of the design. Thank you. Just plug that.
Hope it works, right? Worked. It's good. Okay. So, I'm Kyle Zick. I'm a landscape architect with KZLA. We're a landscape architecture firm based in Boston. And I'm just going to pick up where Jen left off. There'll be a little bit of overlap in terms of the process, but it'll You'll be tested at the end to make sure you got it at one of the presentations. So why are we here? I mean, you all are interested in dogs. I hope that you're in the right meeting, right? So we're going to discuss the new dog park, information on the schedule, which Jen has already mentioned, and then get some feedback. Give you a sense of my qualifications, why we were chosen, but then we'll get into the project itself. So my firm is a small firm. We do all kinds of work throughout New England, passive parks, urban parks, dog parks. Parks is a common thread of what we do. And of the dog parks, we've done a number of different things, from the very urban, like in the north end of Boston, to suburban or parts of housing developments. So we've worked out a lot of the details and how people use these spaces, that kind of thing. And not just how people use them, how dogs use them. So what are we trying to do? And I think Jen already touched on this, that we want to create a safe and accessible enclosed space for off-leash dog use. And the site is not that far from a pond and a wetland, so we want to make sure we have minimal impact to the natural resources. And that's just beyond wetlands too. We don't want to impact trees, that kind of thing. And then we want to make sure the location, which the location as it's chosen is close to sidewalks and it's easily drivable here, so it will be accessible to many. And Jen already mentioned that we've been working through the summer and fall already. We had a site survey done, we had the wetlands delineated, we've worked on the concept that you'll see tonight. We want to check to see where we're at, get your feedback tonight, and then if we're in good shape, we're going to go to the select board next week, and then we'll keep designing so that we can get this out to bid and build it in 2024. So now, Jen mentioned the Stanton Foundation is funding part of this. Now, they have rules as part of their funding. And according to them, on the left-hand side, a dog park will have fencing, and it's got to be 5 feet minimum tall. You have to have potable water, so a hose bib at a minimum, maybe a drinking fountain, shade for dogs and owners, a dual gate entryway, so there can't just be one gate and then a dog runs out into the road. There's going to have to be 2 gates. Accessible parking, so we'll have handicap parking space. There'll be dog waste bags and receptacles, seating, signage, and surfacing. We're going to talk more about all these. So then on the right-hand side, the dog park may have agility play components. So if we want to have ramps or tunnels, that kind of thing. But the things on the left-hand side, Stanton says we have to have. Yes?
You mentioned accessible parking. Does the site and the entrance to the site and pathways within the site also have to meet ADA
Yes.
requirements?
Yep, and they do with what we've drawn anyway. So I'm going to start with the design, and this is, I'm going to zoom in and give you a lot more detail, but I'm going to just point for a second. So this is Dr. Solomon Carter Fuller Way, and the pond is over here on the left-hand side. You can see the woodland here, and there's a faint blue line, that's a wetland, and then this is lawn, and the cricket field is up here. So the proposed dog park, and I'm going to zoom in to give you more detail, but to give you a sense that there's this very low volume road here that comes off there, off of Solomon Carter Fuller. There's a sidewalk along there as well that will tie into a small amount of parking, the entrance to the dog park with that dual gate system that I mentioned, and an area for small dogs and an area for large dogs. And then there's trees providing some buffer and shade, and then we'll get into a little bit more detail. So zooming right in, you can follow along or read the labels, but I'll start here with some of the parking. This is gravel parking off of the existing paved road. The accessible parking would be paved, one handicap accessible space with an access aisle. Then what's shown here in white is a sidewalk. So there's a little bit of, yep, question?
Yeah, how many parking spaces have you, are you planning?
That's 8. Oh, sorry, 9 with the handicap spot. Yep.
And is there any room for overflow parking?
So yeah, there's, if you've ever been up there, so that's our parking lot. There's a couple of additional parking lots. I can bring up my slide, but down close to the trails, people park on the edge.
Yep.
There's a lot of soccer fields. There's a lot of soccer fields.
Yeah, there's
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
They get 7 soccer fields. going to the dog park, but
Especially if the road is narrow, right?
just be careful. It's a 20 mile an hour speed limit.
And I understand that, but if you go in where the new construction is, and you're going down the road where you're trying to get to
The dog park?
No, to the, Mass, hunting, where you can hunt over there.
Oh, I'm
Mass.
sorry. I was referring to that as the
Okay.
existing dog park.
They park on both sides. You cannot get one, you can only get one car coming down, so when the car comes up, you have no place to go. That's all I'm saying is, if we're
Completely
going
agree.
to allow parking on the roads, we have to make sure it's accessible for 2 lanes as well, or at least sight of somebody to be able to go
I
through.
think it's a one-way loop, isn't it?
Is it one way now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Supposed to be, I was
It's
just
a one way
saying.
for the soccer, yeah,
I
for the
think it's a
soccer.
one-way loop.
Never knew that.
Yeah.
Depends on what time of day you go, if it's the one way is enforced, but typically when it's busy, it is one way. And this is closer, like when you pull into the entrance to off of Lyman, Dr. Carter Salon, it's right there on the left. So I don't know if you necessarily need to even come up by the new development.
So you would have to exit and go around the loop to exit, because it is a one-way?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. That might just
No.
a lot of
So you could, I don't know, I think you could probably just sneak out.
Yeah.
Is there a left you can take when you get to the
Dr.
end?
Simon's is a 2-lane road.
So
Solomon.
based upon
Right now, we use it as
conversation,
a
it's something
2-lane,
that we
but
should
if you
think
wanted
about.
a one-way, it would have to be marked.
And
You
there's,
don't use it as a
What about-
2-lane.
Part of it's one way, but not all of it. The area that goes down Solomon Carter Boulevard is not one way.
No.
This section, that section there currently is not actually a one way. If you go a little further, if you want to pull out just a little
Where
bit.
the soccer fields are, is
Yeah, up
they have
further.
a sign that says.
further.
Yeah,
Right there.
right about where that is now, going down toward the wildlife management area and partially back up the other side, that's one way. But it's one way, I think, starting at the juvenile facility. There's a couple of juvenile facilities up there, the one that's closest to the wildlife management area. I think the rest of it's actually 2 ways. There's another road that could, if it became one way, get out of center between the field and come back. So it's mixed.
So ample parking is something that we should think about. Having 8 spaces, I don't think it's going to be enough, especially for people who work remotely like myself and take the dog out at lunchtime. There's a lot of us that go,
Mhm.
that have that type of working condition.
I have a comment on the shade. There's a handful of us here that go to the Hopkinton Dog Park every day, and they don't have shade. They're gonna get some apparently, but they haven't installed it yet. There's an area with 2 benches and a roof where dog owners can sit if it's hot. Dog owners often can stand if it isn't hot. I first went to the Hopkinton Dog Park this spring. In an early spring, dogs were all out on the dog field having a great time. The first 75-degree and sunny day, I arrived, and every dog and every person was under the roof. I took a picture of all the dogs and people under the small roof with the 2 benches, and I turned around and took a picture of the fairly vast dog park. There wasn't a dog out there. That was at 75 and sunny. Imagine 80 and sunny, 85 and sunny. So there's a need for shade on the dog field, or they won't be out there on a sunny, hot day. And I noticed the shade is all on the perimeter.
Well, let me finish describing it because it'll answer some of your questions. Yep. So I had gotten as far as the entry here, at least the gate system, but within this area, there is a leash holder, the dog waste bag dispenser, trash receptacle, and the hose bib would be here. So this, and the drinking fountain. So this is kind of a common space. And then there would be a gate into the small dog area, and then a gate on the opposite end to the large dog area. So that's all paved space, and it would be paved coming out of the gates just because that's where all the wear and tear is. We have a bench on either side there that would be near the trees, and then the walkway, which would be an accessible route, go to another bench on either end. Now that's not the end of the seating. We do have a structured canopy here for shade with a bench on either side. It'd be shared by the small dog and the large dog area. And then otherwise, this is a 5-foot tall chain link fence. It has a mow strip as part of it, so they don't have to weed whip or trim around it. And then the surface here would be a fine crushed stone, not stone dust. We call it rice stone. It's a little bit bigger because you can't really keep grass in a dog park. And wood chips are kind of a mess, and they could flow downhill here because it's flat for about 2/3 of this, and then there's a little bit of a slope here. This blue line is 100 feet from the wetland, and we've already had conversations with the Conservation Commission. They're okay with this approach. And then the other things I'm showing here are some of the agility features, a hill climb or a bridge or something like that. So that's something we could get some input on. And I think I already mentioned that the sidewalk, which kind of picks up people along all these parking spaces, can also take you out to the sidewalk that is existing on the site. So that's a tour of the park. Questions, comments? Yes?
So the shaded area that is shared by both the small and the dog park owners, what are the dimensions of that? And then is there a bench? And how many people / dogs I'm assuming it cuts in half.
It does. And, depending what time of day, you might get shade on one side or not on the other. But in terms of the size, a parking space is roughly 10 by 20. So this is probably, 15 by 30 or so would be my guess. And then, yep.
On each side or?
Yes, yeah. So it would be like 7.5 by 30. We're showing one bench on either side. We could do more benches under there.
So how many can you, so you mentioned parking spaces, which is a really great thing. So how many parking spaces erected, for each side?
It's like one parking space wide on either side, but like a car and a half or long.
I like the idea of the two dog parks because I'm with the Hopkinton people. Well, I live in Westborough. I go to the Hopkinton dog park. I've also been to Tufts too. But the small dog and the large dog works well. So I do like that part of the design. And I echo what John said about sometimes there are certain times where it obviously in the suburban dog park it gets busy. Lunchtime, after work, mornings, right? So like the lunchtime after work, sometimes all the owners we do congregate in the shaded, and then all the dogs kind of congregate in the shaded. So I may suggest a couple of other little shaded kind of concrete areas where they could sit to spread out the dogs. Because then issues too are all the dogs are together, and then there's the issue sometimes of they're running into the people or they're running into each other. Or,
Yep.
And so more spread out. And you said this great dog park that Westborough's proposing to use.
Yep. Okay.
Is there any way to have shade out on the primary area of the dog park?
Well, you could do.
They won't go out there on a hot day.
Right.
And hot, it's 75 and sunny.
Yep. There's different ways to do it. Obviously these are going to be new trees, so they're going to be fairly small.
I was just gonna say, they're gonna be 10 feet if we're lucky.
Well, 20 feet probably. But they're very deliberately outside of the fence. We could have some interior, but we'd want a fence around them, and that makes them harder to maintain. Otherwise, you have more structured shade, but that's a budget issue, because these roof canopies are expensive.
So what are the dimensions
Of which?
of either side?
Well, this is about half an acre total.
Okay, so how big is the small and how big?
Well, that's
is the
about a
large?
third of that.
And how did you come up with dimensions based upon, like, the town, how many dogs there are, how many, I assume you did some kind of analysis and calculation.
Yeah, we've done it by comparables. There are certainly bigger dog parks, and there's certainly smaller dog parks. Some of it is what fits well into the space, because we don't want to expand any further downhill. You don't want to have really long, skinny dog parks either, generally. We can go a little bit further that way, but then it's also the bigger it gets, the more it costs as well. So we're trying to make sure there's a sweet spot of accommodating the most use we think we'll have, meeting the budget based on the funding sources, and working within the physical parameters of the site.
I get that, but if we have 2,200 dogs in town, the town continues to grow. I'm just trying to figure out,
Yep.
right? If I go there and the place is packed, I'm not gonna go there, so I won't even use it.
So logic
Right?
is, oh,
So
sorry.
how did you come up with, okay, if I have 5% and each dog will have 3 feet leeway in the room, right? Or, I guess, I don't know how you came up with what the dimensions were, where it was just given to you and just said, this is it, that's all you get to work with?
Well, I think that's what I was saying earlier, that we look at comparable dog parks, other towns, what have they
the
done?
same amount of dogs?
Well, I mean, that now, I don't always have the information on the number of registered dogs, and the registered dogs, depending on the town, isn't always the total number. So, we look at other towns in terms of the size of the dog park, and, use that as the comparable, yeah.
And I think some of the logic from my side as well, and Kyle's his experience built a lot of these, when we look at like a playground, we don't necessarily say, oh, we have so many kids and that's how big we're going to build it. It's just what can we do within our budget, what can we do within the space that we have, and it's something that would serve the town. So some things that I've heard a lot of other towns and rec departments that run dog parks, they've heard feedback, it's the same as a playground. You take your kids to a super crowded playground, not today, we're gonna go home, come back another day. People have applied the same logic to someone. I know I lived in Hopkinton actually, and I visited the Hopkinton Dog Park as a puppy. And I've gone a couple of times, it's been busy, and I'm not super sure how my dog will do, so I go another time. And I'm not suggesting for people to do that, but that's the logic behind some of the size and what other towns have given me as feedback. And I think, yeah, maybe Jeanette,
Yeah, I just think, because it seems like a lot of folks here are familiar with the Hopkinton Dog Park, maybe like as a next step, we can compare sizes. Like, do you know if this is smaller
I have
than?
no idea, this is no.
Right, so I mean,
dimensions.
you're talking about it like it's very small, but it could be the same size as
Yeah, it could
Hopkinton.
be, but I
So
don't
I think maybe that's like a next step
Yeah.
to help people process this, is how big is Hopkinton or surrounding dog parks compared to
Right.
this?
Yeah, that would
I
be
don't know
easy
if
for
this
me to
is
show,
yours.
yeah.
Yeah, if I saw dimensions, I'd take it and go back to Hopkinton tomorrow and say, okay,
Yep.
is it comparable or not, right?
And curious, since you all use Hopkinton so much, what's the most number of people you see there?
Oh, I've seen up to,
Definitely more than 8 parking spaces.
oh,
Yep.
That's gonna be a
25,
huge
30.
problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah,
Because,
especially after work and at lunchtime.
Yeah.
Yep.
so I would say the Hopkinton parking is probably similar to this, in that I think people park on the road, right?
Also
Oh,
has
has
the
to go
overflow,
huge.
a huge, like,
But down at Food Street, right, at the facility,
No,
or
no,
behind.
across the
right
street.
across the street.
Oh,
there's a
and that's,
big-
yeah,
there's a big,
okay.
like, empty space.
Okay.
For lots of cars to go into as well. They just built a pickleball court across the street too, so it will be very, crowded. But in the residential area, such as like Westborough or Hopkinton, a lot of people, like it's more, people shouldn't want to go on Park Drive. So that's gonna be maybe possibly an issue, but what Hopkinton does is it is just a gravel, space where people just pull in the cars, and probably at least, I would say 10, how many cars do you think fit in that? bigger space?
Definitely does.
And that's not even on the road, so then people also pull on the road and park too.
And it's a pretty desolate road. I mean, unless they're going to an actual game, nobody uses that road. And here, you have all those apartments up there, you have other things going on. My concern is if they're parking on the road, especially across the street, there's a possibility someone's got their dog on a leash, they cross the street, the person doesn't see them, the dog can get hit, the person can get hit if they're between
Yep.
cars. So, and again, I'm just throwing out things that I know.
Oh, it's all good.
I'm not saying
Yep.
it's bad, right?
Yep.
At all, it's just things to think about.
All right, right here in front?
So I'm a little concerned about the amount of shade, because it shows all these pretty trees, but they're gonna be sticks for the next 5 to 10 years. So we don't have shade except for the structure in the center. You mentioned that there's wetlands there, and right now we're 100 feet away from the
Mhm.
wetland. What's the minimum setback for use such as this from the wetland? Minimum setback?
Well, it's all about controlling the stormwater, because you're with
You're
the.
gonna grade this space a little bit and level it out, et cetera. You said that there's the
Yeah, generally we're
lower
not
area
leveling
is
it
a-
much.
Is a hill.
Yeah, the hill starts to pick up in through here, and we're not changing that. We're going to still leave
Oh, that
part of the
you're
hill.
gonna leave,
Yeah,
okay.
and
But I'm
then
saying we could extend further down, knowledgeable of the wetland buffer, which would give you access to real trees that are on site currently right now.
yeah, I don't
that
think
are
that.
sizable and would provide immediate shade in this area.
Well, so north is up. So you have to think, from the morning, through all the way to the end of the day. And these are tall trees, so you are going to get some shade, even in the summer, when the sun is highest. But at noon, you're not going to get anything from any of these trees. So then you're going to rely on something that's within the dog park to provide that shade. But I think the Conservation Commission would push back if we started to go. I know if we were within 50 feet, they would say we won't approve
Well,
this.
there's regulations.
That's right. Well,
So I'm just wondering, what is the minimum setback from a wetland for a use such as this? Do you know it?
well, there's no regulation for a buffer for a dog park.
Okay.
Yeah. So then I think it's just a matter of anything within 100 feet is in their purview, and we have to get their permission. So, and then the commission will decide, the Conservation Commission would decide how close can we be and if they would approve it or not. But I think our preliminary conversation is they wanted us to be as far away as possible, and they were okay with us being within the 100 foot, but we're not encouraging us to go closer to the wetland.
So moving the park closer down the driveway should take effect, I just don't know where the wetland is.
The wetland is this flag, right?
As you enter the Dr. Solomon Carter
Yep.
Fuller Way, we are far in. There is a grassed-in area right by the entrance.
Yep, this could
that also has a buffer of trees, and I just don't know where the wetland is in that area. I'm just saying orientation of this park. Is there any way to
Yeah.
orient it so that you could take advantage of a treed area?
Yeah, so here is what you're describing. The wetland is that blue line. It continues down here, and then here's the road you turn in on. So, in theory, the dog park could grow this way, but then we have to just run the numbers.
Take advantage of a shade area there on the right.
Yep.
That,
Yeah. So then.
that's just one thing to consider, using the topography of the current landscape with large trees that are currently on site to
Yep.
provide shade.
Yep.
As long as you're not, if you look at where he says it's the downward slope, that dotted line, if you pull the dog park more vertically, you're gonna have more of a hill dog park. You know what I'm saying? Like if you bring it down, you've got half the dog park down the slope.
There's not necessarily anything wrong with a hill dog park.
Yeah.
It's not really.
I think we all have to go out and look at the site a little bit, but I was
Yep.
just wondering, can we shift?
I've been to Medway, they have kind of a hill dog park, and they have tree shade. And I've been to Medford, and they have tree shade.
The tree shade, I think, is
And
probably,
the dogs are not gonna go out on the field in
And burn their
sunny,
cars.
hot summer
Hold
weather.
on, we've had hands in the back that
Okay.
everybody keeps jumping over. So.
I'm just curious where all the excrement waste gets drained to, because with Chauncey being a popular dog spot, you have a dog that goes to the bathroom here, 20 yards over, one dog goes over here, 50 yards over there, dog goes in the woods. Right here, you're concentrating hundreds of dogs together and saturating a sponge of dog excrement that most of the time doesn't get picked up. But urine, of course, you can't pick that up, and that's also going to drain somewhere. Highly
Right.
acidic, highly caustic. Where does that go?
Well, there's actually a lot of research showing that soil can do a lot to break that down and treat it. So that's another reason why we're staying back from the wetland, so that the soil can do its job before anything goes toward the wetland. Here?
Two-part question. How does the budget compare to other dog parks, not municipalities, because we are rural here? So I understand in the city it's going to be a lot more expensive. And what's the biggest cost factor of actually doing this? Because you said there's not a lot of grading. there's grass already, there's the 5-foot fence. I understand that is a volume-based thing. There's 8 parking spaces, but what is the variable, the biggest variable on cost?
Yeah, so the primary drivers are the area of the dog park and the surfacing. The fence is actually one of the more expensive things. And then the parking here isn't all that expensive because it's gravel. But, you know, you already have topsoil, you know, seeds, not much. The planting isn't all that much. So it's really more fencing, surfacing. You know, baseball hat?
I'm just curious, I know it sounds like people are into the divided stuff. I've never been to a dog park that's had a divided area. To me, it just looks like it actually wants the space on one side or the other. But what's the rationale and the need for the fence? I know a lot of, all dog parks I've been to, the small dogs sometimes are even more aggressive, like playing with big dogs and, you know, kind of hold their own. And I think it just opens up, especially to be like a limited size overall. You know, is that absolutely necessary?
I'll show you my small dogs are later.
So I think too, Stanton requires.
They do.
The grant, they require the small and large dog area, yes.
But small dogs could go into the large area?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean-
Like, I think one of the benefits is too, that I've looked at is if you have a shy dog sometimes, they go into the other area, that like, instead of the area that all the dogs are playing in, and they kind of sniff through the fence, and then they get let in, or the dogs don't really get along with each other. They can be.
But in this structure, could you put a large dog into this small dog area if they were
It's
shy?
not necessarily like no small dogs allowed, it's just if you're an owner and you have a really small dog and there's a bunch of big dogs, because I've been at Tufts at times where people have really small dogs, but it's all big dogs and they're like, ew, I don't know if my dog wants to play with those big dogs, but sometimes they do. So
It's a way to segregate the dogs based upon the dog's temperament, right? It could be that the dog becomes aggressive, and they're not normally aggressive. It's just, you know, they're animals, period.
Yeah. But as Jen said, you know, it's Stanton Foundation requires the separation.
So that, I get
That's pretty much it, and they probably require it for the reasons that they're mentioned.
On the temperature question, subject, like what's the thermal properties of this rice rock thing? Like, does that maintain heat? Talking about needing shade, like
Yep.
is that
It's a lighter color generally, so that's good. But it's warmer than having lawn, that's for sure. But I mean, you wouldn't sustain lawn here. I mean, we've seen other dog parks use artificial turf, but that's hotter and a lot more expensive. And wood chips we try not to do because they're like a sponge. In the back, in the inner jacket.
Do you have a feel for the trees that are on the south end of the dog park property?
Mm-hmm.
Would they provide any shade to the southern part of the dog park itself?
Just depends what time of year and what time of day.
Right, well, I'm thinking, let's say August 1st. Because I notice you don't have any tree plantings planned for the southern border of the dog park.
Right.
Is that because of also a conservation commission issue?
No, if we planted native species along here, that wouldn't be an issue at all.
Because isn't it true that the hottest part of the day, the sun is going to be coming from the southerly direction?
Yep, and it'll be high. So we'll get, like at noon, you won't get any benefit of the shade here at all.
Right.
You know, later in the day as the sun starts to get a little lower and it's heading over here, you know, some of that will provide shade.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there was a rationale to having more trees on the north side of the park than on the south side.
Some of that is a buffer, you know, to provide a aesthetic buffer to the parking, but also separation from the road and the park. But yeah, I mean, if budget allowed, we could continue to add trees.
Yeah, I guess my suggestion for future would be to put more trees on that southern
Yeah.
border. I mean, I realize they're not gonna help initially, they'll be too small, but.
Got to start sometime, right? Yep.
Eventually, they could make a huge difference, I think.
Yep. And that checkered shirt?
Is there a way to pause on the agility features and transfer that budget money to more canopies for shade?
Yeah.
And then down the line, the rec department, like maybe there can be some fundraising for agility features, but maybe, I think what I'm hearing from everyone is the shade is probably more important than the agility features. So if those are a part of the budget, maybe, you know, swap out those for more shade. And then,
Great
stuff easily addable?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then the second part, sorry, just hearing you explain the reason for the placement of the trees, I actually wonder if it's more dangerous to have trees blocking the parking area, like if they'd be better off along the south side.
Well, I think looking at this, I probably want to remove a couple here just from a sightline perspective. But here, there's a little buildings, so we're trying to, buffer that as well.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Yep.
I'm just curious again on the reasoning why the dog park is being built. Is it because we got the grant from the Stanton group that you take the government money and put it towards the leftover funds versus, because I know like you've already voted down splash pad downtown for children, and I know that, skate parks and other things that kids can use in town. I just, I'm not an anti-dog person, I'm just,
So,
it just seems that, this is
Yep.
this is put in a space where a humongous dog population already exists.
right.
So I'm just curious. if
Sure.
that's the reason, because you got the Stanton Foundation money, they say, oh, because we were handed this, we might as well come up and just give up the rest of the money and make this.
Not quite. So just a note about the splash pad. I have been with the department for 10 years, and I think for 10 years we've been talking about a splash pad. It turns out a splash pad is very expensive, and there is a lot of detail that goes into it, more than I knew. And I was thinking 500,000 for a splash pad. It would easily be close to $1 million. So we had to pull back on that. That was a learning experience for me. The dog park. One of my slides that I did kind of breeze through, the dog park had been identified in 4 different town strategic planning documents. So the town strategic plan in 2016, the town's open space and rec plan that was done in 2018, and the most recent master plan in 2021. And then our department did a conceptual design plan for the state hospital property that also called out our dog park. So it's part of my job to review these documents, hear what they're saying, and then find ways to get them done. And if I can get a grant to do that, obviously that makes the most sense.
I completely
Yeah.
agree with you.
Mhm.
I just feel, I have a dog, I take it to park.
Yep.
I take it to multiple parks.
Yep.
We have dog-friendly parks today that people use with great parking. Some of them actually with the poopy bags, one, I think.
We'll have
and
bags.
Then this gives you off-leash for a lot of zeros. I'm just wondering, yeah.
This would be the only off-leash area
Yep,
in town.
right.
Dogs love the off-leash, that's how they play.
Fortunate I have a yard.
Yeah, and Melinda can talk, and Melinda is here.
The hours are really bad, and you have to register, and it's just a field, and there's no seating, and it's all.
So I don't know, I was just calling it to just say, I don't know how, if you're comfortable, I just know in my experience from things that people have said to me, instances where dogs are off leash on trails or on our soccer fields, our fields manager has had to have conversations with people, you need to have your dog on a leash. We don't even allow dogs on fields to run around freely, which is, what dogs want to do. And some people are fortunate to have a yard, and that's great, but even still, just to kind of get out, take a walk, go to a place where you can let your dog off leash, meet your neighbors. And then there are folks that do have dogs that live in apartments or smaller houses with no yard. And this just is a municipal space that dogs would be safe, they're allowed to run around off leash.
They like to wrestle with one another too, not just be off leash.
Yeah, right.
You can't do that.
Socialized, yeah.
Fenced dog.
That's a bit social.
Yeah.
Your intro slide talked about residents. So it's interesting that everyone goes to Hopkins isn't it?
Framingham.
But would we restrict this to residents only? Would it be open to the greater community?
We wouldn't restrict it. I talk again about like a playground for kids. We have a bunch.
Your original slide should change so that it's open
Oh.
to the greater community.
Oh, yeah, for our goal.
residents. And
Yeah.
so I just assumed
Sure.
this was for Westborough only, and how that would be policed.
Yeah, right, exactly. We wouldn't be able to police it, so I'll edit that. Good note, thanks. Melinda, I don't know, did you want to say anything? I didn't want to put you on the spot about dog issues off leash.
Came out at one time. Identifying the desire on the part of many people in the community to have a dog park came along before this
questions? If anything comes up, yes?
Again, I was just curious, again, I'm not anti-dog,
No.
but no, definitely not that, my wife knows.
That's funny.
But I'm more pro-children than I am pro-dog. I have dogs, again, I'm lucky enough that I take them off leash, I know I'm not supposed to say that, but until there's trails in the woods, I take them biking, this and that. But when the money comes up from the government and says, here, you put this towards recreation, you put this for your town, I'm only new to Westborough for 5-6 years, and I brag to everyone an incredible town this is for community. I'm coming from another town, I don't want to name names, in case anyone's also from that town, but this town is incredible with children and families, and I thought more, like, I know you're doing a rec center or something down.
Yep, the community center.
Okay,
Yep.
so again, the cost, I'm not sure what the overall cost of the dog park is, but I know like Framingham's dog park was about $300,000 and it's barely used. That's just based on the residents that I know that live in the Buckleys, all right there, they're all home dogs. There's aggression issues with dogs, they don't want to go there, this and that. That skate park that's extremely popular right next to it, is flooded with kids, and that costs $400,000 to build. So, you know, I don't know, it's just, again, I'm not, I know dog people love this stuff, but
No, certainly. And just to reiterate that 90% of this funding is coming from Stanton Foundation, which is only, it's not like I could have gotten a grant for anything through Stanton. It's just for dog parks. Yeah. So, and we have, like you mentioned, the community center. I think that there'll be a lot of opportunity coming down with that as well. But this is, like I said, it was called out in a few strategic plans through the town. And like I said, it's sort of my job to kind of keep a pulse on all of it. And if there's a substantial grant like this, we have to kind of move on it. Yes. Hi, Gina. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
Can you also say that percentage? I think you were asking about like why didn't that 107,000 go to a dog park? But you're saying other people in town were able to submit projects, and so like it's not all on rec department to make everything for kids in town. There were likely other projects that received money
Yep.
or
There-
applied. So I mean, I kind of think it's apples and oranges. Like that 107,000 was what you applied for at the dog park. Other people could have done other projects for.
that's what I mean, like, was that
Other
a
towns.
grant? Did you ask for that government money to say we need it for the additional?
No, we had it allocated for the splash pad. And then when the splash pad was coming back, when I was getting numbers saying we're not going to be able to touch this for probably, it was almost going to be $1 million. We reallocated my ARPA money to use for the 10% for the dog park.
Right, so that's what I mean, so like, because you got that 90% Stanton money, you said, oh.
The town had to come up with 10%, and so instead of going to the taxpayer, I already had, I think, $250,000 allocated for a splash pad. I took that part of the ARPA money to use towards this.
So what is the total budget? You mentioned 10%, 100,000 being 10% of the cost, they're covering 10%? I'm sorry, I'm lost. What is the total budget here?
Do we have the budget?
It's ranged between 100 and
Yeah, so
500,000.
I think a lot of dog parks are in the 250, 300, or even could go to 400,000. I think this one is probably around the 300 range, so Stanton would pay,
One is 600,000,
Northborough is?
so 600.
Yep. So,
Compete with that.
That sounds high.
so then Stanton
splash
would cover
pad.
250.
And we make up the rest, yeah.
So the town would only have to put in an additional 50,000,
If it were 300,000, yes.
and we have 107,000 at
In
our
our-
disposal for leverage.
But yep.
And then it could also go towards future maintenance, or no?
We'll
That
have
would
to-
just be rolled
We'll have to
into our town
see
budget.
how ARPA funds are, the rules around that. I don't think we could, yes, exactly. I don't think we could just bank it for the future. So we'd have to spend it within a certain time, yeah.
So, again, sorry.
No,
we're
no,
talking about
no.
funding. So
Sure.
that money that comes from the government funds, that's allotted for, that's a so that, we were granted 107,000 total.
No, the town was and you know, that the grant was, the town was,
Okay.
and then there was an internal process done where all town departments were given the opportunity to apply for a piece of that.
So, right, so
Well, no, we had to apply. If I didn't apply for anything, I wouldn't have had anything.
Right, so that's what I mean.
Right.
So like part of that funding also then,
We bid about, I think it was
you know,
$5.5 million, we had about $12 million in requests.
right, so I mean, so like out of that funding that you get from the government, it goes towards like, you know, say like the train bridge and things like this that is, you know,
I
obviously.
mean, a lot of them went to schools.
That's what I mean, it's a school, yeah, all right, so that's, I wasn't sure about the numbers, so I thought like that specific amount that came from that fund, the ARPA funds, went only to the dog park. I didn't realize it was such a humongous
Oh, yeah.
number that, okay, no, now it's a lot across the
Yes,
board.
I mentioned earlier too, if you, the website, the town's new website is really well organized. There's a whole page dedicated to ARPA, the process, who got what projects. So I would recommend, check it out. It's really, straightforward and easy to read, but it can give you a lot more information on where that 5.5 million went and how it was distributed.
So it sounds like you want to move this forward to be able to be approved and go into building for next year. So currently, there's not a lot of redesign options because that would cost more design money.
No, redesign doesn't cost more money. You know, it's just, we just need time, that's all.
I'm gathering that nothing else fits except the shape and size like this, is that right?
Well, I mean, I think the different comments we've had, you know, it potentially could come, let me just go back one slide. Potentially, it could move further this way, or not necessarily move, it could grow. We don't really want to grow down on the steeper section or closer to the wetland. There's a little bit of room to head this way, but not a lot.
What's that shaded oval right there?
That's like a memorial.
I thought I saw it, there's got little trees.
There's plant new trees, yes. Mhm.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you could take advantage of the trees
Yeah.
on the left of the drive when you
Here.
come in, because that is along there.
Yep.
And stuff, and just change the shape.
Yeah, I think we can look
I
at
don't
that.
know, you know, because that seems to me works well in Tufts with the shape, having real trees.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, it does, in that little part, but it also, in that little part where it tucks where they're shaded, it's nice, but then there's no place to, like on the other, like, main part.
Right, I mean, that's one of the
Yeah.
downsides of
Right,
a lot of
yeah,
these
but-
spaces is
yeah.
that there's just not a lot of shade.
Right,
And the
so,
spaces get hot and,
yeah, right.
the other thing is lighting, so, this would not be accessible, like the hours, in the winter time, it gets dark at 4:30.
Yep. Again, I keep making the,
It's a very dark space
yeah,
right there.
dawn to dusk, just like our playgrounds. We don't want to have lights, dawn to dusk. Again, just like our playgrounds are now.
So it would be dawn to dusk?
Mhm.
How operating
Yeah,
hours?
yep.
Yep.
We go make comparisons of Tufts and the lovely trees that they have there. If you came a little further down around this corner, people would be aware, at that area, you're gonna start running into a little bit more water. The part of Tufts Field at the very lower end
Yeah.
gets very wet. I don't think that would get quite as muddy, but it will definitely get spongy. So
Yeah,
maybe
close
they
to
must-
the line of the street, right.
As you come further down,
Yeah.
It's very
the
damp
line,
right through
it
there.
gets
You
damp
can't
there.
really build it.
Simply taking a couple of the trees from one end and putting them on the other side may deal with shade issues that people are concerned about, as well as, sightline, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
to the road. Yeah, if we're going to try to elongate that down at some point, you're not gonna get very far.
Yep.
It's start getting wet.
Otherwise, next steps. Next week, we're presenting to the select board, but I think we're going to incorporate as many comments as we can. Jen and I will meet after this, and you all are certainly welcome to come to that and support or have more comments. And if that goes well, we would try to bid this in January so that we could construct it spring, summer 2024.
Do things like this actually get voted on? Or is this just decided by the town hall?
I guess, I mean, we've brought it in front of the select board a couple of times, and
And it's in the master plan.
it's in the master plan where there was a lot of, all of those plans that I keep referencing, there was a lot of, all of them had, a public input, part of it. So these, you know, the excerpts, like I said, I didn't read them, you know, verbatim, but people calling for a dog park in four of the strategic plans, those didn't just come from the consultant. They went out and do surveys, they were at public meetings and things like that. So I guess a technical, like a town meeting vote, no, but the information is coming from the public. And Ian, sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying, the select board has the final approval because it's town property, but, for town meeting, go to town meeting if we were actually using tax dollars for it. So town meeting would basically, would have to appropriate for it, or if we were changing zoning or anything like that, but because it fits in with zoning and the plans and the money is coming from grant funding and then the ARPA funds, which didn't need to go to town meeting, it was a town meeting vote.
Thanks.
For this reason, also for this public session
Right.
tonight and the select board session.
Would your final design specify the types of trees?
Yes.
And is that what's currently available?
No, we haven't determined that yet.
Okay.
She had her hand up first.
I just want to say thank you for having hard work on this. As a mom of 2 kids and a dog, I'm really excited for this project. I think Westborough needs something like that for us, and thanks for having this public.
No, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for
I
your
think there's
comments.
one more.
Did you consider any other locations?
We did a little bit. This is just, like I said, it was in our conceptual drawing. It's ideal because, like I said, there's already water, there's electricity, and it can't be used for any other athletic field. A lot of the other spaces, either there aren't many other spaces, or there could be there's a space across the street from Greg's Field. There's a parcel of land. But it's a decent size. We actually had explored a few years ago during COVID, maybe outdoor basketball courts. So there were other potential uses there. So this parcel of land is big enough for a dog park, but not big enough for much anything else. So that was our process through our commission and stuff. Yep.
You have the accessible parking lot at the trailhead. I don't know if there was space down there to put it because there's mature trees and
Right.
obviously like.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yes.
If we're close to wrapping up, I wanted to reinforce Jeanette's point. I think it might be the best takeaway point from us out here, that budget-wise, some little canopy shade or something on the field would be more important than doggy play equipment.
Sure.
If you're gonna put a budget to one or the other, the shade.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. That was the point of this, to get feedback like that. Like, okay, it sounds like the people that are going to be using the park don't necessarily care about. And equipment like that is always stuff that our rec department, you know, over the next year, we hear people, oh, I wish there was a bridge or something. We could, you know, certainly look at our budget, you know, through our revolving account about putting and installing something like that in the future. Yeah. Yeah.
What is the agility stuff?
Just stuff the dogs can jump on,
Yeah.
like bridges or.
Ramps, tunnels, you know, balance beam kind of thing. It's just, you know, toys basically, but that are fixed to the ground. It's like play equipment for dogs.
And you found that dogs use that typically, or?
Yeah, yeah.
They need shade.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chase each other around here.
There was a picture earlier with a dog going through the tunnel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like a water pipe.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that's all they have to do is throw stuff like that out
Yeah,
there. That's
throw a
what
big stone.
Washington has, and they those are TP and
Yep.
stuff, and
There are also opportunities for volunteer labor to help install things like that down the road.
definitely.
on the side.
Yeah.
I'm up for that.
Eagle Scout.
That's what we've heard. Yep. I think Ian has something.
Sorry, I
No.
came late to this
No.
meeting to talk about, but I know that a lot of dog parks also have a kind of friends of the dog park, whatever, they do fundraising, and I think you get that, instead of going back to the revolving account or something from the town, you get people using it to hopefully contribute. I think that's something that we
Yeah.
should consider.
Yep. Many towns have expressed that out over the time. A natural group of people come together and put something like that together. Yep. Yep, Jeanette.
I just wanted to
No.
say thank you and everything that she said, just thank you again, I'm really, really excited for
Great.
this.
Me too.
We love having our dog on leash, but we do it kind of illegally.
Now Melinda knows who to look for. All the culprits are here. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm very, very excited about this, and I just want to thank you guys for presenting and giving us the opportunity to give feedback. Also, if we want to have more conversation about this, I started a Facebook group called chat more about ideas or suggestions and we could share them with Jen.
Yeah.
But, I'm just really excited, so thank you.
Great. And I know I got some email about people not being, were interested in this, but weren't able to attend. Westborough TV is recording it, so maybe Jen, I could send, post that. And if there's any feedback in the next couple of weeks, please send it to me and I can work with Kyle.
I'd really like to know what the dimensions are, or proposal for dimensions, right?
Yeah, and we'll do that study for the select board meeting. We'll do that comparison of Hopkinton, Tufts compared to this one and give you an acreage.
On the community TV, he actually said they were streaming it live and then it would be available on their YouTube channel
Yep.
afterwards.
Yep, so it'll be available for anyone that
Stream.
might have missed it, yep. And we're gonna post these slides too onto the website, so all the information will be a lot of places.
And the water spout would be really nice,
Yep, we have,
It's
yep,
included, yep.
included, yep,
because we do use that quite a bit at the same time. We bring our own bowls.
yep.
I know.
Doggy splash pad.
Oh, gosh, there you go.
For some reason, Washington does water their area at 3 o'clock every day. I don't know why, but.
Oh, I think I've heard it's to clean,
And all of a sudden,
Yeah.
I got wet.
to clean the stone, I've heard, they clean the stone. That's why, yeah, mm-hmm.
So, what I can tell you is people who usually go to dog parks, like myself or us here, we always pick up after other people's. and our-
Also, what I've heard from other towns as well, Framingham, someone mentioned, they were really nervous about people just coming in, and they have been no issue. Like, they were surprised at how clean it is, people keep it. I've heard a lot of times people kind of police other people and kind of shame you if they say, you see, like, people aren't afraid to say, hey, pick up, your mess and stuff, so. Yeah. So, all right, yeah, yeah.
I think someone mentioned something about another one of the dog parks that people go because there's like some dogs are, bully type dogs and are, not making it comfortable for other dog owners there or other dogs. And is there any kind of thought or any sort of idea of a way to control that if there is such a thing happening? Is there any kind of, is that just up to the people that are there to say something? Sometimes it's not just bad dog, it's bad owner, right?
Yeah.
That's usually
Yeah.
the rule of thumb, but is there any kind of
No. So I'll work with Melinda on coming up with the policies and procedures,
3 strikes, you're out kind of thing? Or?
and then I don't know, Melinda, if you have a thought on that.
I don't know if it's a community thing, being the south side of Framingham versus Westborough, or affluent town, different type of clientele run it. But, again, a lot of my customers are Buckley Hotel and Buckley Apartments right there, and Bancroft Building, which surround the dog park. And most people are saying, no, I'd rather walk around Farm Pond than I am going to bring a dog into the dog park. Even the police have had lots of issues with it, with aggression, bites.
This is in Framingham?
It's the Framingham one.
Interesting.
Well, I can counter that. I mean, I grew up on Waverly Street. All my relatives live there. They bring their dogs there. They love it. They have not had any problems.
It's good, it's good.
So, I mean, I'm not trying
No,
to,
it's-
so it's unfortunate. It might have been
it's
one
two sides of the
five
story,
times. Right. And again, it's the owners. And we've had a couple of aggressive dogs over at Hopkinton when we were there. And everybody stands behind it saying, hey, get a hold of your dog. If not, you're gonna have to go.
Did you want to comment, Melinda, on if you had any preliminary thoughts? I know we will talk, but.
I think we will come up with some regulations regarding behavioral animals, where people are expected to have control over their animals. But I also want to reiterate the point a couple of people had mentioned using the money for other projects. Stanton Foundation money is only for dog parks. So we cannot reallocate that funding to any other thing without a whole grant process or some other thing. But that money will only be for dog parks. We can't say, well, let's put it somewhere else.
Great.
And maybe that can be part of like any of the signage as far as instructions of the dog park. That,
Yeah.
You can mention, trying to curb aggressive behavior
Yep.
towards dogs or something, so people might just automatically get the
Mhm.
so they can say something.
Yeah. And like I said, we'll work with Melinda and the police and,
Does the dog have to have a license to go into the park?
yes.
Dog hazard. Dog have to.
Oh, my God.
One of the
Dog has its own license, you should have them anyway.
So if are there any other questions that we can answer right now? And like I said, please feel free to reach out to my department. I'm happy to answer any questions. And if any of your friends or neighbors that weren't able to make it have thoughts, they can email me as well. And like Kyle said, we'll be at the selectmen's meeting next Tuesday. But yeah, thank you all so much for coming. I really appreciate the feedback and for taking the time. Oh, thanks.
It's gonna be a meeting next Tuesday about this.
Similar to this, yes. Not an input, but more just same kind of presentation.